Well, thank you for staying with us. It's, of course, Breakfast Extra. And turning to South Africa, reactions are growing as the murder trial of soccer star Senzo Meyiwa makes another twist. A key state witness whose statement helped launch major portions of the case has publicly distanced himself from the prosecution, raising questions about the strength of the state's evidence.
Joining us to unpack this are Elton Hart, legal expert at the Law Clinic of the University of Journalism, and Nokwazi Ntombela, content creator following the trial very closely. Gentlemen and lady, you are welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining. Gentlemen and lady, thank you for joining us all the way from South Africa. Now, let me start with Elton. Elton, can you tell us the legal implications now that the main state witness is disputing having made the statement at all and distancing himself from the situation? What does this mean for the credibility of the evidence?
Now, if one looks at what the state witness, and this is now Absalom Zungu, the Zungu Senior, that's saying, but the statement that was given to the court or given to the or in possession of the prosecution was never made by me. And this is a statement that was fabricated. That has a major impact on the narrative and the case that the state is trying to prove against the accused persons. So if now this witness is saying that I've never made this statement, and this is the circumstances under which I met Brigadier Geninda, who was brought there by my son, it places major question marks on all the evidence that the state has gathered against these 5 accused persons, to say that if they could have gone as far as fabricating a statement like this of this magnitude, what else could have been fabricated in actually building a case against the accused persons in court?
Right, so let me move to Nokwazi. I apologize, I hope I'm not murdering your name on TV. Sincere apologies if I am, but you know, as a creator on social media and as a citizen following this case, and you know, it's been pending for so long, what are your observations about how it has been handled so far?
There have been so many delays, firstly, in this case. We do know that the case did start de novo, and the delays in the case are very worrisome for the people that are following the case. It makes us feel that justice for the Meyiwa family is being denied, basically. We are having the states changing their evidence, basically, by saying that the confessions that were ruled to be admissible by Judge Rathamukwatleng are no longer confessions, and they want to change them to executive statements, which is something that we saw in the past couple of weeks, where the state wanted to cross-examine one of the accused on the statement of another. So all along we've been regarding these as confessions, and now they want to change them to executive statements. So as a member of the public, I feel that justice is being denied in this particular case.
So, Elton, is it legal to change statements into executive, what did you call it, Nokwazi?
Executive statements.
Awesome. So, Elton, is it legal to change statements to, confessions to executive statements?
When we deal with confessions, you look at section 219 and 217 of the Criminal Procedure Act. And when you ask the court to admit these statements, you do it under those sections. Now to come at a later stage to say now that confessions is actually executive statements, it's like then you're telling the court, but what you admitted to be allowed to be presented in this case is not actually what we said it was, it's something else. So you must let the court willingly. So that can never happen, it's unheard of. And hence the court made that ruling that it made, because the court's hands was tied. The court could not do anything else. As much as we could have seen that during the duration of the trial, the state has been trying these back-handed and backdoor tricks to sneak in evidence on various ways. And the court, in some instances, allowed them to do that. But for once, I was actually glad that the court said, you cannot do it. But I know why they couldn't do it, because there's no authority that allows that you say, this is a confession and now you want to make it an executive statement. An executive statement is something that is done with a person in an official capacity. And I don't think those statements was made in such a nature that they want to now say these were executive statements, because it's accused that made that confessions or alleged confessions. Let me not even call it confessions. I still hold it's alleged confessions.
So it seems that there's systemic institutional failure here where the courts have their hands tied and these cases, or the case has carried on up until now. So I'm wondering, Elton, what you might have identified as an institutional failure here. Because if these cases or if another case comes, this will be precedents. So what could be changed, what could be reformed so that these kinds of cases don't see themselves tarrying up until where we find this Meyiwa case currently?
No, for me, obviously, I think it is first and foremost that some of the head of courts, they need to come in and say, but this case has been taking too long. But also for me, the problem lies in, and this ties into what is currently happening in our country, that we have these two commissions that is actually looking at the behavior of sub-officers. Because in this case, you would know there was a docket 636 and a docket 375. And these two dockets had two different suspects already. So for me already within SAPS, it seems that the investigation teams are not in sync. There is two, I would call it factions within SAPS that wants to see different outcomes to this case. And I don't know what's happening there, but for me, it's somewhere there in the crime fighting unit where we need to actually investigate cases where there's a systemic failure. And I won't say this create precedents, because we do have full benches, we do have our Supreme Court of Appeal, we do have our Constitutional Court, and the High Court is bound by things that has happened there. And there were some things that they could not do it otherwise because we already have precedent for that. So I don't think it will set a precedent, but it will sort of make the people's confidence in the justice system fade away.
Now, Nokwazi, let me come to you. After all, your name does mean she who knows. And I'm wondering, since you know so much about this case and you've been following it for quite a while, there are different audiences here to consider. There is the digital audience, of whom you are very aware of, and then there's the traditional audience. There's also those who are following the case, well, on an experiential level. That means they're there. But what would you say, or how would you say that the digital influence, I beg your pardon, what do you think the digital influence has been when it comes to the Meyiwa case? Do you think that there has been some sort of outside jury or public jury that has influenced the case in any way that it has gone?
Well, the courts of public opinion will always have opinion when it comes to this case. And it is a good thing that this case has been broadcast to the public to share their opinions on it. We do feel that there is a lot of inconsistencies that are happening in this case. And I've seen that a lot of people actually do agree and seeing a certain trend with the behavior even of the judge in this particular case. So we do have a certain opinion that we have with regards to how things are handled, and the public is not happy with what we see before the courts.
So do you think that the public perception here is something to be considered even in court? I know that this is not how it goes. I know Elton will correct me there, but do you think that in some way, shape, or form, this is a greater perception than whatever is happening inside of the court? Because it's out there and it seems it's bigger, it's a bigger entity outside of the courts.
The public, although we don't really know the legal terms and the way that the legal fraternity works, we do see the evidence that is provided before the courts. We have been following the evidence, and from the evidence that has been brought in by the state, it is not convincing beyond reasonable doubts that the accused that are before the courts are responsible for the murder of Senzo Meyiwa.
Elton, do you want to take on that one now?
And for me, I hold it, and our burden of proof that rests on the state is beyond reasonable doubt. So if there's doubt, it should be given, that benefit should be given to the accused persons. And with what you are seeing, and also what's happening on other levels within the South African Police Service, I have no reason to believe that these are the 5 people that actually is responsible for the death of Senzo Meyiwa. They might have knowledge as to who was the culprits, but I don't think that they were the ones that's responsible for that. And the entire handling and how the state also behaved in actually presenting cases, not calling crucial witnesses. Because I would say, when you look at the witnesses that they called at the beginning, they called Tumela Madlala and they called that other Nokwazi Ntombela. Why not call Kelly Kumalo, who was the close associate and girlfriend of Senzo Meyiwa? Why not call the other people that was in the house to say, let's first test and see the versions of these people in the house. Does it even make sense? Does it even add up? And that, to me, already I smell there's a red, because it might seem that they are conflicting each other as to what really happened. And then it speaks to a cover-up. And then the two dockets that came up that says, in 636, they're saying this are the 5 accused. In 357, they're saying this should be the accused person. Then for me, looking at how the state was going about and how the state is building their case just purely on circumstantial evidence and evidence that is not completely without doubt, I feel like we will not see justice for the Meyiwa family, unfortunately. And the South African public will sort of think that justice is only for those who has money.
Right, so Elton, let's talk about the justice system now in South Africa, because this situation has been going on for a while. You know, when he died, and of course, allegedly there were 7 people in the house, and then, you know, no investigation up until a few years after. How is this affecting, you know, South Africans and, you know, them thinking about, oh, if this happened to me, I'll never get justice because it's taking so long to get to the end of this situation? What's your take?
No, indeed. Remember now, this happened in 2014. We are already approaching 2026. So even if there was a witness that was available to testify for either the defense or the state, in 14 years, a witness can die, witnesses can disappear. Then it means that even if there was a good case against the accused, those witnesses are no longer available. That has a serious impact on the finalization of cases and actually holding people accountable for their alleged offenses that they've committed. So now looking at this, a person will easily say, but I won't report this because it might take another 13, 14 years for it to be resolved. But one needs to look at the justice system as different role players in the system. You have the South African Police Service, who's responsible for investigating matters. And once they have concluded their investigation, they hand the docket over to the prosecuting authority, then has to evaluate, looking at it, if there's a prima facie case that the accused has to answer to. And after the prima facie case, will we have evidence sufficient to say beyond reasonable doubt these accused that we have charged is indeed the right ones? And then you need to look at also, is there not meddling by prosecutors in the system? Was there not meddling by SAPS, the South African Police Service, in the investigation? And then you need to look at, and something which is currently before our parliament, also there was talks of judicial officers that could have been sort of a little bit laxy-daisy in how they go about things. Is this not maybe also that type of a case? So one needs to look at all these things and then say, overall, yes, you can say the justice system, but maybe it's a part of the justice system and not the entire system that is flawed, and hence you see these discrepancies coming up.
Well, I want to say thank you very much, Elton Hart, for being here to give us that legal angle to things. And of course, thank you to Nokwazi, she who knows, Ntombela, for also giving us the social angle to the entire dynamic. I hope I got that right, Ntombela. Am I correct? Is that the meaning of the name?
Yes, you are correct.
Yes.
That's because we have a South African.
You didn't have to tell her my secret.
But
thank you very much. Thank you indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.